Hey traders, welcome back to the FXE YouTube channel and welcome to September. Finally, we're out of the summer months. Hopefully we start to see a little cleaner price action from now on. And I hope everyone had a good week trading this week. For me, it has been pretty good the last couple weeks. But for whatever reason, the last couple days, I started to take losses. So I'm a little concerned and worried about that. So I'll review my journal, see how I can avoid those losses in the future, and hopefully get back to better consistency. The markets just closed a couple hours ago. I had a quick review of the charts. I started to notice that things are starting to look a little clearer across the higher time frames. It looks like we're starting to see alignment within the time frames. I'll clarify a little more as I go through the charts, but let's start with the monthly time frame first. So on the monthly time frame, you can see it's bearish, lower lows and lower highs. And if we focus on the current range, so if we take our fib from the current range high to range low, you can see we've pulled back into the monthly breaker block, tapped into the 61.8 of the OTE, had a pretty significant reaction off of it. And then the next candle, we had continuation to the downside. What I really wanted to see to confirm the bearishness of the current structure was to see the body of the August candle close below the previous candle. But unfortunately, it didn't do that. The wick came closed below it, but not the body. So it raised some question marks whether we are really that bearish or not. But we've only had one day into the September candle, and you can see we've already started to have continuation. And I'm guessing we're probably going to break the low of the previous candle very soon. And if we do break that candle low, continue further to the downside, continue to break structure, the first likely target that we will continue to the downside to is this monthly fair value gap. So let's go to the weekly. So the weekly gives a little different picture. So this is the time frame where we're bullish. So you can see we're creating higher highs and higher lows. Our structure lows down here, we've had all kinds of bullish PD arrays that have been failing one by one. Like the order block, the equal lows that I thought was the draw on liquidity, but as you can see, since then we've come well below that. We had a weekly fair value gap here that we've come through, pulled away from, but then come back through again. We're currently in the weekly order block over here. We tested it once, and we're testing it again now. I mean, looking at this, several things I noticed is on the last leg down, it's quite aggressive. We have quite a few candles with long bodies aggressively pushing down. But what catches my attention the most is the last candle. So you can see the last candle came up quite high, did some manipulation, but thereafter aggressively came right back down. This created a shooting star formation, which is typically seen as a very bearish candle. So after seeing this candle and the way the week closed, I think it's about time that we start to see some continuation to the downside and target the weekly range low. I think ultimately we will break that and we will continue to the downside. So shifting structure bearish, continue down and target the weekly fair value gap. If we go on the daily time frame, so on the daily time frame, you can see it's been bearish for some time, since mid-July. We've been continuing to the downside. We had some manipulation in this area, and we had the exact same thing happen in the last couple days. So we had that strong push to the upside, giving us a fake out. It broke internal liquidity. You can see this candle as another shooting star candle, but at the top of it there is an order block. That's what EU tapped into before reversing and pushing to the downside. And as you can see, we broke the internal liquidity already. We're really close to the structure low down here. I expect that to go in the near future, and most likely this demand zone to also go and continue further to the downside. Next reaction point will be the demand that we have here. There's also order block here as well, that we may see a reaction from before we continue down and break the weekly range low. So I'm going to skip the 4-hour time frame and go directly to the 1 hour, mainly because I want to use the 1 hour for the weekly review. So starting back here, the week before last, we had news causing all this volatile price movement, but after sweeping the lows, you can see we aggressively pushed out of it, and thereafter started some consolidation before breaking breaking range highs over and over. We reacted off this wick here. We didn't break it. We reacted off of it, came back down for deep mitigation into the order block from this news candle. And then after we tapped into that, we aggressively pushed to the upside. One thing you'll notice is you'll start to see a pattern forming where we break structure, come back to the nearest fair value gap before continuing to the downside. So we did that here, and we did that here as well. So we broke the structure high from over here, and after doing that, came back, tested the fair value gap. We actually went through it, completely filled it and went through it one time, reacted off that, and then came back down for deep manipulation, so sweeping the previous low before aggressively pushing to the upside. And once again, after breaking this range high right here, we came back down to the nearest open fair value gap, reacted off of it, or mitigated it before further aggressively pushing to the upside. And this was our week high, and you can see from the left we swept a lot of internal liquidity, so this high as well as this high. And then on the left side, you'll see we came into an order block right here. So I like to use the bodies of the order blocks instead of the wicks. And coming back here, you can see we swept that before reacting and pushing to the downside from there. We consolidated a little before one last mitigation before aggressively pushing down. And once again, after breaking the range low, you can see we pulled back into the open fair value gap before aggressively pushing to the downside. And then you can see it here as well. We broke this structure point, which created a breaker block. After breaking that, came back, tested the came into the breaker block, but more importantly, retested the open fair value gap before continuing to the downside. And then once again, once we broke this structure low, we came back tested the fair value gap before. It was more or less consolidation. This was between Thursday and Friday Asia and London session. You can see once again we broke the lows, came back up, tested the fair value gap, and then pushed down to mitigate the wick before aggressively pushing to the upside. And this screwed me up a little because I was thinking this area was a good area for us to push further to the upside, either retesting some of the higher levels or potentially reversing. So when I saw this aggressive push to the upside, it was actually news. So this is a news candle. So we had New York open on this candle, which pushed price up, but thereafter we had NFP, which aggressively pushed it to the upside. But rather than continuing to the upside, it actually came back into this breaker block, once again retesting this fair value gap before reversing and pushing to the downside. As you can see, it created equal highs here, so clear sign of potential liquidity for price to come back at a later time. But in this area, it was actually really volatile. It's 2 wicks here, 2 candles with large wicks here, but if you go down on lower time frames, 5 minute, 15 minutes, you can see it's a lot of up and down price action over and over before creating a 15-minute shift with one last mitigation on this candle before pushing down. And you can see this push down, it's not that aggressive, and the reason why is because there was a lot of volatile movement even on the way down. But once it cleared that range of volatile price action, that's when it really started to push down. And you can see the candle thereafter aggressively with a long bearish candle pushed way down into the range. And then the next candle had continuation, and then we finally started to slow down, but you can see it's still pushing lower and lower, aside from this one bullish candle going deeper and deeper. So we broke this structure low right here. So what I'm thinking we may see next, like in the very near future, is we'll probably see a pullback. We actually did already come into the fair value gap once, but after coming lower, I could see a pullback deeper into this fair value gap before targeting these structural lows. So the equal lows we have over here, with the resting liquidity acting as a magnet for price to come and break through. So I can see that happening probably as soon as Monday, if not early next week. But then after that, I'm guessing we potentially could have a pullback. You can see on this leg down, there's a lot of inefficiency that's left behind. I wouldn't be surprised if we come back for some of that after we break the lows. And if you look closely on this leg down, we've created a breaker block. This breaker block is right in the sweet spot, so right in the OTE area. We also have fair value, so this entire area is fair value gap, but the top of it is within this breaker block. So I could see price going for that. I'm gonna get rid of that and redo it because the screen shifted. So I could see price going back into this area. Seems like a prime area because of the confluence that we have there before driving further to the downside. But we have the entire daily leg as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if we went a little higher. I told you we had these equal highs left over. We also have a fair value gap right above it, which also lies right in the OTE zone. So I wouldn't be surprised if we had a bigger pullback into the daily leg before continuing further to the downside. But at the same time, it has been aggressive, this push down. I also wouldn't be surprised if we just continue down from here. It's very likely that when we break the lows, we'll create a fair value. We'll create a fair value gap on the way down, which could be tested before going further without a bigger retest, and then just continuing further and further down. Retesting the fair value gaps as we aggressively push down to try and break the weekly range low. I think this is a more unlikely scenario. It could happen, but I could see it more likely to come back for some kind of a bigger pullback before continuing to the downside. So anyways, that's the way I'm looking at price right now. Like I said, it looks like we're getting closer to having alignment between the different time frames. For now, we just need the weekly time frame to continue down, to break the range low, to shift structure. And then once that happens, in general, trading will become much easier because as we have alignment on all the time frames, we clearly know which direction we need to trade. Well, anyways, that pretty much sums it up for me. Hope you guys enjoy your weekend. Try to take some time, get off the charts, get some rest, because we have a big week ahead of us, our first full week in September. I'm really looking forward to it. Well, anyways, I'll see you guys for the next one. Enjoy your weekend. Peace. Hey, you made it to the very end. Thanks for that. If you could do me one more favor and click the like button and subscribe if you haven't already, it'll allow the YouTube algos to kick in and help this channel grow. Thanks again. Cheers.